I was 9 years old when they told me my parents were dead. The social worker had kind eyes but a practiced voice, the tone reserved for children who need to understand terrible things. There was an accident, autumn. A boating accident on Thornfield Lake. Your parents didn't suffer. I remember nodding. I remember not crying. I remember thinking that if I stayed very still, very quiet, maybe this would turn out to be a nightmare I could wake up from. It wasn't. Daniel and Christine Reeves drowned on July 3, 1995. Their boat had a leak, the sheriff said. Neither wore life jackets. Tragic accident, everyone agreed. At the funeral, Diane Blackwell stood under a black umbrella and said, "Your parents were good people, child. Such a shame about that cursed land." I didn't understand what she meant then. I would spend the next 20 years learning. Thornfield County Group Home smelled like industrial cleaner and disappointment. I shared a room with 3 other girls and learned quickly that the world had sorted me into a category. Unwanted. The town treated me like a ghost. Shop owners watched me carefully. Teachers called on me less. Other kids' parents didn't let them play with the orphan girl from the cursed family. Because that's what Diane Blackwell had made me. The Reeves family always had bad luck, she'd say at town meetings. That land on Widow's Ridge. Native tribes wouldn't even hunt there. Called it bad spirit ground. Poor Autumn carries that curse with her. People believed her. When crops failed, they blamed me. When accidents happened at the timber mill, they whispered about the curse following me. I learned to make myself small, invisible, quiet. But I was watching, always watching. At 15, I learned to pick locks from Tommy Chen, another group home kid. Useful skill, he said with a crooked grin. One night at 2 a.m., I crept into the group home's administrative basement and found my file. But beneath it was another folder. Reeves case. Destroy after 2000. Someone had forgotten. Inside were my parents' environmental impact reports. Photographs of illegal logging. Water contamination data. A list of bribed officials with dollar amounts. And a letter in my father's handwriting, dated July 1, 1995, 2 days before he died. If you're reading this, Diane Blackwell has killed us. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the paper. The letter continued. All the proof is buried on our property, northwest corner, where the 3 maple trees form a triangle beneath the stone altar. Autumn, if you ever find this, be smart, be patient. They're powerful, but the truth is more powerful. We love you always. That night I understood. My parents hadn't died in an accident. They'd been murdered. And I was going to prove it. I spent 14 years sharpening my patience. At 16 I got my first job, night shift at Murphy's gas station. Minimum wage, graveyard hours. I saved every penny. At 17, Preston Blackwell cornered me in the employee bathroom. He was 32, drunk, and entitled. When I fought back, I was arrested 3 hours later. Preston Blackwell says you assaulted him and stole his mother's earrings, Sheriff Hammond said, cuffing me. We found them in your locker. I've never seen those earrings in my life. I spent 6 months in juvenile detention. When I got out, Preston was waiting outside. He smiled. Next time you'll know better than to say no to a Blackwell. I said nothing. But I added his name to the list of people I would destroy. At 18, I aged out of the group home with $2,000 in savings and nowhere to go. I lived in my 1987 Honda Civic, showered at truck stops, ate expired food from diner dumpsters. And I worked. 3 jobs, sometimes 4. Gas station clerk. Hotel housekeeper. Diner waitress. Weekend janitor at the timber mill. The Blackwells never noticed me. Why would they? I was just another poor person cleaning their toilets, refilling their coffee, making their beds. But I noticed everything about them. Diane conducting business meetings that ended with envelopes of cash. Preston meeting his mistresses every Thursday. Sloane's prescription pill addiction. Tyler filming his authentic small-town life videos while treating service workers like furniture. I documented everything in a journal hidden in my car's spare tire compartment. They thought I was nobody. That was my greatest advantage. Oscar Walsh was 76 years old and the only person in Thornfield who remembered my parents as they really were. One Tuesday at the diner he said quietly, "You look like your mother." I froze, coffee pot in hand. I knew your parents. Good people. They were on to something big before they died. Oscar looked at me steadily. Your father showed me his findings. Blackwell timber was poisoning our water. Then he and your mother died, and all that proof disappeared. You think they were murdered. I know they were. But I can't prove it. Can you? I should have lied. But Oscar's eyes were kind, and I was tired of carrying the weight alone. Not yet, I whispered. But I will. Oscar nodded slowly. When you're ready, I'll help however I can. He left a $50 tip that day. It was the first time in years someone had treated me like I mattered. 20 years after my parents died, Thornfield's economy collapsed. Blackwell timber was hemorrhaging money. I heard about the auction from Tyler's Instagram post. Big news. Counties auctioning off Widow's Ridge. Maybe we can finally develop that cursed land. #small town dreams. My heart stopped. Widow's Ridge. My parents' property. The land where evidence was buried. The Blackwells were going to buy it and destroy everything. Unless I bought it first. I checked my savings that night. $340,000. 14 years of living in my car, eating garbage, working myself to exhaustion. I called Oscar the next morning. I need to borrow $100,000. The land is going to auction. What's buried there, Autumn? Justice. There was a long silence. Then, I'll have a cashier's check ready by Friday. March 20th, 2024. Thornfield County Courthouse was packed. The Blackwells sat near the front. Diane regal and confident, Preston smirking, Sloane perfectly dressed, Tyler filming everything. I stood in the back in my gas station uniform, heart pounding. The auctioneer began. Lot 23. 80 acres on Widow's Ridge. Starting bid. $50,000. Their lawyer raised his paddle. $50,000. I raised my hand. $100,000. Every head turned. Preston stood up laughing. The orphan girl. Where'd you get that kind of money? Rob a gas station. But the auctioneer had verified my funds. The bidding continued. $150,000. $200,000. $300,000. $340,000. Everything I had. Their lawyer. $350,000. I stayed silent. The room held its breath. Then I pulled out Oscar's loan agreement. $400,000. They couldn't go higher without revealing their financial weakness. Sold. To Miss Autumn Reeves for $400,000. As I walked out, I stopped beside their row. My parents say hello, I said softly. Diane's face went white as bone. The construction crew arrived from 2 counties over. I need you to clear the northwest corner, I told the foreman, pointing to where 3 ancient maple trees formed a perfect triangle. Foundation for what? Research Center. Environmental Studies. Day 3 afternoon. A worker's shovel hit metal. Boss, there's something here. I sent the crew home with pay. When they were gone, I stood alone in the clearing and stared at the metal box my parents had buried, knowing they were about to die. Inside, time had been suspended. Photographs in plastic. Documents in waterproof bags. Cassette tapes wrapped in cloth. 847 photographs of illegal logging. Soil samples showing contamination. Forged permits. A ledger detailing $4.2 million in bribes. Then I found Arthur Crane's confession. Arthur Crane had been Blackwell's timber foreman. He'd written in his own hand. Diane Blackwell paid me $150,000 to sabotage Daniel and Christine Reeves's boat. I cut the fuel line so it would leak slowly. Feel guilty now. I think she's going to kill me too to keep me quiet. Bank records showed the $150,000 payment. Photographs showed Arthur tampering with my parents' boat. There was evidence of 4 other whistleblowers Diane had murdered between 1985 and 1995. My mother's 200-page environmental impact report. Proof that Sheriff Hammond had been bribed to cover up Preston's assault. Everything. They documented everything. Then I found the videotape labeled, "For Autumn. Watch alone." I bought an old VCR and played the tape in my car. My father appeared on screen, looking tired but determined. "Autumn, sweetheart. If you're watching this, your mother and I are gone. Diane Blackwell is going to kill us. We know too much." My mother appeared beside him, eyes red. "We're so sorry, baby girl. But now you have the power to end them." My father continued. "This evidence will destroy the Blackwell empire completely. But don't rush. Get a lawyer you trust from outside Thornfield. Protect yourself first. Then watch them fall." My mother. "We love you more than anything. We're sorry we can't be there to see the amazing woman you'll become. Make them pay, sweetheart." The tape ended. I sat in the dark, tears streaming, and made a promise to ghosts. I will make them pay for everything. I didn't rush. My father had warned me about that. I drove to Seattle and hired a federal environmental law firm. They verified every piece of evidence and put me under attorney-client protection. I hired criminal defense attorney Helena Cross. She took one look at Arthur Crane's confession and said, "This is going to be the biggest case of my career." I sent encrypted copies to 3 secure locations and to a New York Times journalist. "Don't publish until I give the word. But if anything happens to me, release everything." I tipped off the IRS about tax evasion, the EPA about contamination, the company's board about Tyler's embezzlement. The investigations began quietly. The Blackwells had no idea the walls were closing in. I began appearing everywhere they were. Diane had lunch at the country club every Tuesday. I'd get a table nearby and sit there reading, occasionally glancing up and smiling. Preston went to Murphy's bar every Thursday. I'd work at the gas station next door and wave through the window. Sloane shopped at the farmer's market. I'd browse the stalls, always in her peripheral vision. Tyler filmed his Instagram content. I'd stand in the background of his shots, perfectly still, watching. I said nothing, did nothing overtly threatening, just existed in their space. It drove them insane. Preston started drinking more. Sloane developed a nervous tic. Tyler's content took a paranoid turn. And Diane started making mistakes. June 15, 2024. Diane Blackwell came to Widow's Ridge herself, flanked by Preston and Sloane. "We need to talk," Diane said. "I'm offering you $2 million for this property. Take it and leave Thornfield." "No." Preston stepped forward. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, orphan girl." I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Preston's voice, drunk at a bar. "Remember that orphan girl I nailed when she was 17? Still the best I ever had." The construction site went silent. Workers stared at Preston with disgust. Preston lunged at me. Workers grabbed him. Diane's voice rose. "You have no idea what you're starting. Your parents learned what happens to people who cross me. You want to end up at the bottom of Thornfield Lake too." Smiled. "Did you just confess to murdering my parents? Because I'm recording this." I held up my phone, video running. Diane's face drained of all color. "You've terrorized this town for 40 years, I said steadily. "You murdered my parents. You murdered Arthur Crane and 4 others. You've poisoned our water, destroyed our forests, and ruined countless lives." I stepped closer. "But now I have everything. Every crime. Every bribe. Every murder. And tomorrow morning, federal agents are arresting you." "You're bluffing," Diane whispered. I showed her the New York Times article scheduled to publish in 12 hours. "Timber Empire Built on Murder. How One Family Poisoned a Town for 40 Years." Preston vomited. Sloane started crying. "The curse is real, Diane," I said quietly. "But it was never on my family. It was on yours. And tomorrow, everyone will know it." I walked away, leaving them standing in the ruins of their empire. June 16, 6 a.m. I watched from the overlook as federal vehicles rolled into town. 8 black SUVs. State police. They led Diane out in handcuffs, still in her nightgown. Preston fought and was tackled. Sloan collapsed. Tyler live-streamed his own arrest until agents confiscated his phone. By 7 a.m. the New York Times article was live. By 8 a.m. it was the top story everywhere. By noon, #Justice for Autumn was trending globally. Tyler's followers turned on him viciously. His videos mocking me were shared millions of times with comments like, "He was harassing his grandmother's murder victim." Protests formed outside Thornfield County Jail. And I sat in my car, watching the town that had tormented me tear itself apart, trying to distance themselves from the Blackwells. The trials lasted 6 months. Diane faced federal charges for 6 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, bribery, environmental crimes, tax evasion, and racketeering. Her lawyers tried everything. But Arthur Crane's notarized confession was ironclad. The photographs were verified. The EPA confirmed contamination. 3 other whistleblowers' families came forward with evidence they'd been too afraid to reveal while Diane was powerful. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 6 consecutive life terms plus 85 years. Diane Blackwell would die in federal prison. She died of a stroke 11 months later, alone, with no family visiting her. Preston's trial was harder to watch. I testified about what he'd done when I was 17. I described the bathroom, his hands, the way he'd laughed when I cried. His lawyer tried to discredit me. "She's motivated by revenge." "Yes," I said calmly. "Because your client sexually assaulted me. Revenge doesn't make me a liar. It makes me someone who's been waiting 17 years for justice." 17 other women came forward. 17 women Preston had assaulted over 2 decades. All of them poor, all silenced by Blackwell money. Guilty on 19 counts. 45 years in federal prison. As they led him away, he looked at me. "I made you. Without me, you'd still be nobody." Smiled. "No, Preston. You tried to break me. I made myself." Sloan got 18 years for conspiracy and fraud. In prison, she filed for divorce from Preston. He refused to sign. Tyler got 12 years for embezzlement. His social media became a case study in ethics courses. The influencer who mocked his grandmother's murder victim. Blackwell Timber was forced into bankruptcy. The EPA fined them $200 million. All assets were seized. 400 employees lost their jobs. But I was ready for that. I sold my story rights for $8 million. Used $20 million from a settlement to fund cleanup of Thornfield's watershed. Then I started Reeves Environmental Solutions. Sustainable forestry. Environmental restoration. Ethical business practices. I hired former Blackwell workers. Within a year we employed 200 people. Within 3 years 600. The company was worth $50 million and growing. I rebuilt the group home with $5 million of my own money. Renamed it Reeves House. A state-of-the-art facility with therapists, teachers, and people who actually cared. I built a memorial in the town square listing every victim. So we never forget what happens when power goes unchecked and communities stay silent. Sheriff Hammond resigned after evidence of his bribery went public. He lost his pension and faced criminal charges. Judge Patricia Werner was disbarred for accepting bribes. The town council was replaced entirely. And the townspeople who'd been cruel gave them a choice. Those who publicly apologized and made genuine amends. I helped them, found them jobs, gave them second chances. Those who remained defiant found their business licenses denied, their loan applications rejected, their influence gone. Thornfield learned a painful lesson. The powerless eventually gain power. And they remember everything. 1 year after the arrests, I held a memorial service for my parents. We'd recovered their boat from the lake. Arthur Crane's sabotage still visible after 29 years. Half the town attended. The other half stayed away out of shame. My parents died trying to save this town, I said. For trying to tell the truth, they were murdered. For 20 years, you all participated in that murder through silence. Some people left. Most stayed. I don't forgive you. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. But I do release you. The curse Diane invented to cover her crimes. It's broken. We were cursed with cowardice and complicity. Oscar Walsh nodded slowly from the front row. My parents would want me to build something better than revenge. So that's what I'm doing. Will you help? Or will you keep choosing comfort over conscience? Afterward, people approached, one by one. Some to apologize. Some to ask how they could help. It was a start. 5 years after buying the cursed land, I stood at the ribbon cutting for the Reeves Environmental Research Center. The building stood where my parents' evidence had been buried. Beautiful glass and reclaimed timber, surrounded by restored forest. Scientists from 3 universities worked here, studying environmental restoration and sustainable forestry. The cursed land of Widow's Ridge had become Thornfield's most valuable property, not in dollars but in purpose. Oscar Walsh, 81 now, stood beside me. Your parents would be proud. I hope so. I know so. You didn't just get justice. You built something that will outlast all of us. That's legacy. For the first time since I was 9, I felt something like peace. At 34, I owned an $80 million company and 40% of Thornfield's commercial real estate. But the thing I was most proud of, Reeves House had a 100% college acceptance rate. Every kid got full scholarships from my foundation. 23 former cursed orphans were now doctors, engineers, teachers, entrepreneurs. One day, I received a letter from Sloane Blackwell in prison. She wrote that her daughter Bethany wanted to work at my research center. That she wanted to fix what her family had broken. Called my HR director. Review her application fairly. If she's qualified, hire her. 3 weeks later, Bethany Blackwell started work. On her first day, I called her into my office. Don't apologize for things you didn't do, I told her. You're not responsible for your family's crimes. You're only responsible for your own choices. Make good ones. How can you be kind to me after everything? Because someone was kind to me when I had nothing. I'm just paying it forward. 10 years after the auction, Thornfield had transformed completely. Population doubled. Economic growth exceeded 300%. We'd won national recognition for social programs and environmental restoration. Reeves House had graduated 147 former orphans. Every single one went to college. Last month, a little girl in Reeves House asked me, "Is it true you used to sleep in your car?" "Yes. And people were mean to you. Very mean. But you didn't stay mean back." "No. Got even. Then I got better." That night, I drove to Widow's Ridge and stood where my parents had buried the evidence. A brass plaque marked the spot. Here Daniel and Christine Reeves buried the truth. Here their daughter Autumn unearthed justice. May we never again bury our conscience for the convenience of the powerful. I touched the plaque. I did it. I made them pay. I built something beautiful. I broke the curse. The wind rustled through the maple trees, and I could almost hear my mother's voice. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." The whole village had laughed when the orphan girl bought the cursed land everyone feared. But when construction workers started digging, what they found buried there turned her into the town's most powerful woman overnight. Not because of money. Not because of revenge. But because truth, buried long enough, becomes an earthquake when it finally surfaces. The curse was never the land. It was the silence. And I had learned to roar.